Hey y'all, Marty Smith here from Outsider. I host a podcast with my name on it, the Marty Smith Podcast at Outsider, every week. And I had the great opportunity recently to chat with Breland. He's such an interesting person. His spirit is infectious. His passion and his kindness are a light in the world. He's recently been on tour with Meetingrks Bentley. We'll get into that. We'll get into how his passion was always to write. And he's done that at an extremely high level, calls himself the pinpoint guard. I know you guys are going to enjoy this conversation. I certainly did. Here's Breland on the Marty Smith Podcast at Outsider. All right, Breland, first, man, I just want to talk about your bio on your social media handles, the pinpoint guard.
Yes, sir.
What does that say about you?
Man,
what does that say about you?
You know, obviously, I know you're a sports fan and writer yourself. So, pinpoint guard is just kind of my moniker for what I do in the studio. I'm kind of a point guard as a songwriter. I dished out songs for a lot of years. I've always kind of looking to get artists' records, but when the lane was open, I decided it was time to drive in and get some points myself.
You have written for so many different artists and so successfully. How would you describe your writing process?
Yeah, man, thank you. My writing process is kind of usually start with like chords, just like a musical bed. I'm a really melodic person, so I like to have some melodies, and I come up with a concept first. I'm sure when you write things, you usually have an angle in mind when you're writing something. This is what I want to write about. That helps. Some writers don't do that. Some writers just start writing and then see where it takes them. I'm pretty structured, and then just kind of piece it together like that. But if I'm writing something for me, I want it to sound like something that I would want to say. But when I'm writing for other artists, I have to kind of put myself in their shoes and see what I think they would want to say and what would resonate with their audience. And so that's kind of my approach.
What's the responsibility in that? It's always funny. I can relate somewhat because there's been times in my career when I wrote something that was actually someone else's words and it became a first person type of story, right? And when you're charged with someone else's value system and someone else's soul, that's a big responsibility.
That is a big responsibility. And I think for me is if it's something that they would say and something that they would be saying anyway, then I feel comfortable writing it from their perspective, right? So I'll look at an artist's body of work and say, okay, this seems to be the type of messaging that they're putting out from whatever perspective that is. And I try to put myself in that place. Now, if I would personally say something differently, I would do that on my song. But from their song, it's kind of like if you're writing a script for someone, you got to think about it as an actor. This person is a character, and you can imagine what that character might say and what that character might not say. The difference is in this situation, it's real people, but it's the same principle of it's fiction because you're imagining what it would be that they would say.
It's interesting too. You say in a moment ago how a lot of times we go in with an angle. You go into a writing session with an idea, but it's always beautiful to me if I go to a college football program to do a story, or I go to a golfer to do a story, or whatever the context may be. I have an idea in my head, but then as the interview materializes or the story unfolds, you realize it's a completely different story.
Yeah.
How often does that happen to you when you go into a writing session with an idea, but you come out with something completely different that's every bit or more beautiful?
Almost, it happens almost every time.
Every time.
I mean, because the truth of the matter is, as well as I may try to plan for something, the song wants what the song wants, and I'm kind of in service to the song. And so I could easily be like, no, it has to be this. But all of the songs that I'm really proud of, it feels like the song kind of led me to its completion rather than me trying to just impose my will on it. So I just try to stay receptive to what feels right when I'm creating, and if it takes me a different direction than the one that I came in thinking it was going to be, that's fine by me.
I love that line, in service to the song.
Definitely.
That is so well said because, man, the entire industry that you're in, all of it. There's a whole lot of bells, a whole lot of whistles, a whole lot of nice jeans, a whole lot of pretty this, a whole lot of handsome that, but it's all about the songs at its foundation.
Definitely, man.
And I love what you said, in service to the song.
Yeah.
Did you just come up with that right now? Because I like that.
No, I've been saying that for a little while. Hey, tell me this, man. You got a Marquette sweatshirt on? Is that what I see?
One of my groomsmen in my wedding 147 years ago, before you were even born, he is the golf coach at Marquette.
Gotcha.
So,
I was gonna say we got some Golden Eagles over here. Okay. Yeah, I'm a Georgetown alum, so when it comes to like college hoops, we go up against Marquette a couple times a year.
I was going to ask you about Georgetown in just a little while. I've been around AI a little bit.
Oh, wow.
Hey, let me tell you, man, that guy has an energy. If you want to get into hoops, we'll get into hoops. I mean, that guy, for me, I'm a Jordan guy. Michael's the greatest of all time. I respect LeBron. Kobe was a one of one, but Michael is the GOAT. Now, pound for pound, nobody ever played the game harder than Allen Iverson.
I believe
that guy was 6'1", 160 pounds of sheer badass.
For sure.
And I loved watching that guy play. So for a guy that went to Georgetown, who is Allen Iverson to Georgetown alumni?
Yeah, I mean, not only as a Georgetown alum, but also I grew up in South Jersey. I'm a big Philly sports fan my whole life. So I grew up watching Allen Iverson, and my dad had gone to Georgetown. So I respected him doubly, both as a Georgetown fan and as a Sixers fan. I mean, as a kind of undersized guy myself, you know, I'm 5'8", but I was always like the shortest person in my class, and I played basketball growing up. I feel like he was just kind of an inspiration to me because there wasn't anyone like him in the NBA at that time. And as you said, pound for pound, I would agree with that. I think he's pound for pound probably the best basketball player of all time, and just the types of moves that he was doing on the court. People do some of that stuff all the time now, but he was creating some of these crossovers and ankle breakers that like people literally did not know how to defend. And I just think as a fan of the game, and then also as someone that's kind of paving my own lane, there are a lot of similarities between a player like Allen Iverson and myself. That said, I do practice, so I have no problem talking about practice.
How were you introduced to music? How did you enter this world?
Yeah, man, both of my parents sing. They met in a gospel choir in college, and kind of went on to lead worship at church, and they're both ordained ministers. So there's always a lot of gospel music and really strong vocals around when I was growing up. That said, I was not the most talented kid. Like, there's some kids that you see and you're like, oh my gosh, this kid is a superstar. I wasn't that kid. I don't think I really stepped into that until a lot later in life, but was definitely exposed to a lot of great music, and kind of eventually started to find my voice. And by the time I went away to high school, I went to a boarding high school, so I was living on a campus. I kind of had a chance to reinvent myself a little bit. Like, growing up, my mom was the vice principal of my elementary school, so I was always kind of like her son, you know, to everybody. And I finally had a place where nobody knew who I was, and I could do anything or be anyone I wanted. And I just started telling people that I was an artist before I didn't have any songs or anything. I was just like, oh yeah, I'm an artist. And they're like, okay, well, where's your music? And I was like, oh, you know, I'm working on it. And eventually I started to write some songs and play them so I could kind of catch up with this new identity that I had created for myself. And it worked. People bought it, and I really started to enjoy being on stage and creating songs, and then kind of took off from there.
What was your first time on stage? Put me there.
So there's kind of two instances. One was my first time on stage in high school, which was this like open mic night. I was a freshman. A bunch of people from the school were there, a lot of faculty, some parents, and I was singing a song that I had written, And the song was trash. It's just hot garbage, honestly. Like, let's be honest. 14-year-olds don't need to be writing songs. Well, 14-year-olds should write songs, but you should understand when you're a 14-year-old writing songs that you are a 14-year-old writing songs. That's probably not going to be your magnum opus at that age, right? But I came out and it had some singing and some rapping, and I was nervous as all heck. And my peers were really supportive, and they cheered even though I messed up a few times and was shaking with my hand on the mic, and they supported it, and I just felt loved and was like, okay, cool, that wasn't so bad. I can definitely go do that again. But then fast forward about 12 years to a couple months ago, I kind of stopped performing for a number of years and then was focusing on just writing songs for people. And then as I started to put music out as an adult, and things started to pop off, the pandemic hit. So I never got a chance to perform My Truck or any of these songs in front of a real audience for the whole first year and a half that I had music out over the past couple of years until this spring, really, until stuff started to open back up. And that performance kind of also feels like my first performance, because that was my first performance as Breland. And I was performing at the CMT Awards with Gladys Knight, and it was live television, and I literally had not played a show yet. And I'm like,
okay, wait a minute. You got to go down that rabbit hole, bro.
Yeah, man.
I mean, that's one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
What are your emotions? What is your reaction? How are you managing this moment?
Yeah. So I was going to be coming out at the CMT Awards to sing my song Cross Country with Mickey Guyton, who's another country music artist. And they were like, hey, it's going to go into a Gladys Knight song. Do you want to be a part of that as well? And I was like, sure. And they're like, okay, cool. Yeah, Gladys would love it. And I was like, oh, she's going to be there. They're like, yeah. And so we did a sound check the day before. I was so nervous. She was like, you sound great. Don't be nervous. And she's just like so iconic, and she looks great she looks great, period, but she looks great for her age. I wouldn't have known that she had been in this industry for 50 plus years, right? And the night of the actual show, that's when I started to get really nervous, because I was realizing that I'm like, yo, this is live TV. There's a couple million people watching this. My whole family and everybody are watching this from home, and there are people in Bridgestone Arena right now watching the performance, and I've never had a performance, and I'm on stage with Gladys Knight. It was just a lot of factors, a lot of things going on at once. That said, I just kind of channeled it in, and I kind of thought, I don't think that I got to where I am by chance. I think that there's some divine involvement. And so I kind of just realized, like, I don't think that God would have brought me this far to fail here. And I need to just trust what's happening. And so I just kind of channeled it into that. And it was a really great night.
You mentioned your faith right there.
Yeah, man.
How does growing in a home with two ordained ministers impact your worldview?
It impacts it tremendously, man. I think, for one, I as I said, I don't really take anything for granted, and I also can't really take credit for any of the things that are happening. I mean, I can take credit for putting in the work, but God puts me in the position for that work to mean something. And it just kind of also helps keep me centered when it comes to what it is that I want to bring to the world. I want to bring light and positivity to the world, even if I'm not making Christian music or gospel music per se. I think there's an energy that I can bring to a stage, or to an interaction with a fan, or to an interview, or just in the music itself, where I'm bringing joy to the world and bringing love and positivity to the world. And I think a lot of that is informed by my faith.
It's so important right now, man, with kind of where we are, just to be kind. Yeah. Just to take a moment to consider somebody else's life, to consider somebody else's position. Everybody's going through something or managing something. And so if we can inject joy, even the slightest amount of joy, it can rewrite someone's day and then thereby the world.
Yeah.
One thing that I love so much about music is, in this world where we need kindness, we need to be kind to one another. We need to consider other people's emotions and perspectives. And if we inject joy into their day, we could change not only their day or life, but the world.
I agree, man.
And one of the best ways to do that is what you do every day. You and your peers. How aware are you that music can be that vehicle?
I'm constantly aware of it, man. It is the main driving force behind what I do. And part of why I like calling myself the pinpoint guard and being here on this podcast with you, man, is that I think there are a lot of parallels between music and sports. And I can recall a time that I'm a big Eagles fan, and I was headed to an Eagles game, and as we were headed to the game, this dude was in a car and was just being an idiot and was like cutting us off and just had an energy about him where I was like, yo, screw that guy. And then we both pulled into the Eagles parking lot and came out in Eagles jerseys, and I was like, oh, snap. I'm like, my brother, we dap each other up. And it's crazy how, allegiance to a team can settle differences immediately, where if we had pulled into a Walmart parking lot, I would have been like, I can't stand this guy. He's being an idiot. But in that context, it was like, okay, well, you know what? It doesn't matter anymore because we're wearing the same jersey. And I think sports do a really good job of that, and I think music can do that as well, where my audiences are diverse. I'm fusing country music with hip-hop, R&B, gospel, and pop, and nobody has really done that in that way. I call it cross-country is kind of the title that I have for the subgenre of music that I make. And cross-country, as a result, there are people who come to my shows who are traditional country fans. There are people who come to my shows who really only listen to hip hop and everything in between. And so it's always a really diverse crowd. And when I see people forming relationships with each other in my audience, it'll be an old white dude and a young black kid, and they're singing along to every word. That's a really powerful moment when you see people that probably did not come from the same background, probably are not coming from the same place, being able to put those differences aside and have common ground. I think sports and music both are really integral for that ideology moving forward.
Music, sports, church.
Literally,
and
that's it.
That was one reason the pandemic was so hard on all of us, because we couldn't gather.
Yep,
they do. We're made to. It's funny you were mentioning being an Eagles fan. I married into an Eagles family, and every one of them are complete and total lunatics about the Sixers, the Eagles, the Phillies, y'all are crazy, man.
We're crazy.
Every one of y'all. I thought SEC football was crazy. Y'all are crazy.
Yeah, man, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about Eagles fans, bro, or just Philly sports fans in general. And I'm a pretty collected, calm guy. I've got my stuff together, except when I'm watching Philly sports. I can't even watch Eagles games in public anymore because people might recognize me and be like, yo, Breland is crazy. And I don't want to go viral for the wrong reason. So I have to watch all my games from home privately, especially this year. It's been tough. It's a rebuild. So yeah, I'm watching all that stuff from home now.
Recently, you've toured or played with or collaborated with Keith Urban, Meetingrks Bentley, Chase Rice, just to name a few.
Yeah.
Who have you met? And I know you did just tell us one just a second ago that might be this answer. Who left you the most speechless? That they knew you and knew your work?
I mean, honestly, I think when it came to Keith reaching out, that one really surprised me. And mostly just because it was so early in my career. I literally only had maybe 2 songs out, and he reached out and was like, hey, what's up? It's Keith Urban. I'm a big fan of what you're doing. I am working on my album right now. I think it's mostly done, but I have 1 song left and I want to make it with you. And I'm like, what? I was like, yo, start to finish, everything in this message is ridiculous. And he was like, yeah, just let me know, whenever you're in Nashville. And I wasn't living in Nashville at the time. I was living in Atlanta. And I was like, I'll be there tomorrow, dude. I'll be there tomorrow morning. And I drove up and went to his house at like 8 a.m. I'd left at like 5 in the morning. And he was like, oh, dude, I'm not even ready. So he was like, you can wait in the studio. He didn't know I was coming that early, but I was so eager. And we ended up making a couple songs on that trip. One is Out the Cage that I'm featured on his project. And then the second one is Throw It Back that I put out featuring him. But just the fact that he had his ear to the streets so much that he knew of a new artist that only had a couple songs out and then also wanted to work with that person just kind of shows me how much of a visionary he is and how much of a true creative he is. He wasn't playing any of the industry politic games. He was just like, I like what you're doing. I want to be a part of it. I would like for you to be a part of what I'm doing. And it happened. And I think that one really blew my mind.
I'd imagine. I mean, that's one of those guys. That's one of those mega stars who has nothing left to prove, who's done it all, and who continues to evolve, which is beautiful in that format, is the evolution process. What impact does a superstar collaboration or endorsement have on a young artist's career and credibility?
I mean, it's major. It's major. It's like the equivalent of being recruited by an SEC school or Ohio State for football, or you know what I mean? Like it's that validation. You could have ended up going D3 and doing D3 collaborations, and sometimes those people still make it to the league, but the chances definitely go up when you have the backing of some of those powerhouses. And I think, you know, having music with Keith, but also more importantly, when it comes to some of these guys that I have music with, and then also some of these partnerships that I've done, like the Chevy partnership, it gives me a chance to learn. You know, I'm as a young artist and as a young business person, these are all people that I learn from and can ask questions. And there's an element of mentorship there. And I would say even with the Chevy partnership, just seeing what that looks like and what we can create and how to continue to build that relationship as well as the relationships with the artists that I'm working with. All of those things are important lessons for a young artist and a young entrepreneur to learn. So I just look at it as a student. You know, I'm excited to be here, to have a seat at a lot of these tables and to be able to soak up game from people and organizations that have been doing this for a lot longer than me.
Yeah, I want to dive into the Chevy relationship a little further in just a minute, but let's discuss a couple more of these artists first.
For sure.
Another friend of yours is Meetingrks Bentley.
Yeah.
You went out on a road with Dirks.
Yep.
What impact did that have, and what did you learn from him?
Yeah, that was major. I mean, Dirks has obviously had a lot of success at country radio in particular, and his live show is just a blast. But he took the single that I'm featured on, Beers on Me, with my guy Hardy as well. He took that single to country radio at a time where I hadn't had any success at country radio. So for him to kind of extend his platform to help introduce me to a whole new audience, and then to be on the road with him, because my shows, I'm doing small clubs, you know, so we've got 200, 300 cap venues, and I love doing it because people come out and, you know, especially when we sell out, there's a lot of energy in that room. But it's really hard to compete with knowing that Dirks is out here with 10 to 15,000 people a night, and I get to come out on stage with him and sing a couple songs, and that energy is electric. And so it's just helped me. It's helped me grow a lot as a performer. Obviously, it's helped me at country radio, and also he's another person that's been at this for a good 20 years, and just someone that I look up to. And he does a lot of things the right way. The only way that you can survive and thrive as an artist for that long is if you're treating people well and if you're working hard. And I think that's what I want to do. I want to be able to treat people well and then continue to work hard. And if you don't let your foot up off the pedal in either of those regards, good things tend to happen.
It's funny, man. My kids are so tired of hearing it. I've said it on this podcast before. I said it to your guy, Chase Rice. We just had him on in
Awesome.
that seat that you're in, or right beside the one you're in here recently. I feel like in a world of uncontrollables, we control three things every day. We control kindness, we control effort, and we control passion.
Yep.
We decide if we're going to be nice. We decide how bad we want it and how hard we're willing to work. And we decide if we're going to have an undeniable positive energy.
That is true.
That's ours.
Right.
And it's exactly what you're saying right there. And you're right. Dirks is the embodiment of that.
Definitely,
He's a wonderful
man.
human being.
Yeah, all of the people that I've collaborated with, I've been really fortunate that all of them are really good guys and girls. They're just, country music in particular, I think people tend to be a little bit more relatable. It's not a whole lot of people that have ego, you know, and I honestly believe that if you're writing songs and performing songs, you should never have an ego. You should never get caught up in the, oh, people think I'm this, people, I might be. You can't ever drink your own Kool-Aid, because you have to continue to be able to relate to people. That's what it's about. And the minute you lose that relatability, people aren't going to continue to listen to your music. So I think there definitely are more artists who are able to accomplish that in country music than otherwise. But even with a guy like Nelly, who's kind of country adjacent, and I have a couple songs that I've written with Nelly and one that we have out, but he's just one of the nicest guys and super down to earth, and you can have a real conversation with him. And I think for all of those people, that's part of why I'm in the position I'm in, is that I've been able to connect with people who have extended, hey, come perform with me, or hop on this song, or come do this thing. And they care about me as a person and my well-being, and vice versa, where it's real relationships. And when you have collaborations with people that you have real relationships with, it's even doper when that song does well, or when you crush it after a performance, or any number of those things.
You do a really good job of using sports analogies that are very relatable to your business and your path and your passion. I have to believe, I've not met Nelly.
Yeah.
I have to believe he does the same thing.
Yes.
Am I right?
You are.
Yes.
You are entirely correct, man. I mean, Nelly is a part owner of the Hornets, and a really big sports fan, and has been for a number of years. Like, when we wrote the song High Horse, the Sixers were playing. Who were we playing? Might have been the Raptors. Anyway, the Sixers lost in the last 15 seconds of the game, but we were coming up with this hit song, and I was like, that's a tough moment. And I was just like, Nelly, give me like 5 minutes. I'm gonna shake it off. I'm gonna be back, and we finish up this verse. And he was like, what happened? I was like, I showed him the score. He was like, oh, he's like, that's killer. And he totally got it. He totally understood it. And I was like, okay, cool. You and me, we're right here. Sports fans in music, Chase is another guy, and Dirks too. Honestly, they all love sports, and I think that's part of why I connect with them, is because we have things even outside of music that I'm like, we could just hang out and watch something, and that's obviously a really easy way to form relationships.
Sure is. All right, let's discuss the Chevy relationship. How did that materialize?
Yeah, man. So my truck had kind of been popping on TikTok. It's the song that put me on the map, and Chevy wanted to launch a TikTok and kind of do the whole TikTok campaign for their new Silverado, and it was kind of an organic partnership with them, given that the song had done so well on TikTok, and they had the idea to partner up and do like a Chevy specific version of the song, kind of reimagine some of the lyrics with some custom lines about the trucks that we were trying to sell. And it just made a lot of sense, man. They understand that the future of everything is diverse, right? There's nothing that's gonna just be monolithic moving forward, monochromatic. Everything is going to be diverse, and I think they recognize that and wanted to reach a younger and more diverse group of hopefully future truck drivers and truck owners and people who want to be a part of that community. And that song inspired a lot of people to buy trucks. When it came out, I got a bunch of messages from people like, oh my gosh, like I love this song and I don't even have a truck. The next vehicle I'm getting is going to be a truck. And I think they kind of peeped that and felt like it would be a good idea to join forces. And it was a really successful campaign. The initial campaign on TikTok, we got like some 80 million views, which was
that's insane, man.
Which is like crazy.
TikTok's crazy.
TikTok is crazy.
It's funny, bro. Right now, as you and me speak, my wife is upstairs in our home here in Charlotte. She is trying her damnedest to figure out how we grow TikTok for my ESPN life, because when you see, and it's not just you. It's so many of your peers, especially it's so interesting to me. 90s country stars like Tracy Lawrence and Travis Tritt and some other guys that we've had on this podcast. have all said to me, we are trying to figure out TikTok.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing. Clay Walker. They're all trying to figure this thing out because it's just such a perfect, what's the right word? There are no obstacles. It's a direct conduit to the fan.
Yep. Yeah. And also just the way that their algorithm is, anything can go viral. Right. You could put something up that you could put a simple, silly 5-second video up on TikTok, and it could, in a matter of hours, be seen by millions of people. They're really for no money, right? Like there's no other platform on the internet or elsewhere that you can just put something up and then millions of people who don't even follow you can see it, because it's an avalanche type of an app where once a certain amount of people engage with it, they open it up to even more people, and they open it up to even more people, and you can't beat that. And so I think Chevy realized this is the easiest way for us to reach a new and younger audience of people. And it was a successful campaign. So they nailed it when it came to that. And from there, we just had a really good time shooting that and working together. And they were like, we want to do more stuff. And I was like, that's great, because I want to do more stuff. And that kind of led us to our most recent iteration of the campaign with the season opener.
I love it. Just full disclosure, I am a Ram Trucks guy. I have a Ram Trucks PSA through the college football playoff and ESPN. But it is indisputable that the Chevy Silverado is the official truck of country music. I mean, that truck is everywhere. Like, Morgan's single Silverado for sale is outrageously. I mean, that to me is a copyright song. We're going to be singing that song 30 years from now.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just that I'm gonna have to put that out on social media. Is the Silverado the official truck of country music? And I know you will vote yes.
I will definitely.
All right,
vote
a couple more, and I'll get you out of here. I'm sorry that we've kept you so long already.
Oh, dude, you're good, man.
I saw a note. You were talking about how country music now has no boundaries and the diversity that's coming in. Right. I saw a note on social media of a guy who said, hey, I doubted you. I didn't give you any chance, but you changed my tune. You did it.
Yeah.
What does that tell you about what you're doing when you get that type of feedback?
Yeah. I mean, it's an odd message to get in a way, because it's like, well, why did you doubt me in the first place? Right. But then secondly, it's like everybody has their perceptions. And I think especially when you have a song that's kind of, fun, kind of tongue in cheek, like My Truck, that blows up on the internet, a lot of people don't realize that it wasn't just a happy accident. It was years of me putting in work to be able to create a song like that intentionally and then be able to make other songs after it. They don't see all of the work that goes in on the front end. So to them, it seems like I'm not going to say that I'm Tom Brady, but I will say that a lot of people doubted Tom Brady when he came into the NFL.
Sure did.
And he has literally proven everyone wrong. People came in, they're like, he's slow. He's all of the things that they said on his scouting report coming out of Michigan. For him to then come off the bench and become the greatest quarterback of all time, I feel like no one really knows what someone is capable of. And as you said, with those three things, with effort and passion and, was it kindness?
Yep.
Yeah, with those three things, you control your own destiny in that regard. You can put that work in to get however far you believe you can get. No one else can put a cap on that. So it doesn't really bother me that people doubt me, because they don't know what it is that I'm capable of, and they don't know the full complement of skills and drive that I have to use those skills to go towards something meaningful. So I guess for me, I just try to remember that I don't have to prove them wrong. I don't do it to prove them wrong, but I know that I will inevitably prove a lot of people wrong in the process, so long as I stay focused on what it is that I set out to do.
That's amazing. I can relate to what you're saying so well, because when I first became a journalist, I was a writer. I was a writer for 6 years. I moved to TV. When I left for TV, for ESPN, people that I worked with before scoffed. They laughed in my face. You're never going to make it. Why are you doing this? Why are you trying this? Well, then I covered auto racing all the way through 2014. exclusively. That's all I was. ESPN saw something in me. They dropped me in college football. Everybody's like, what in the world is this hillbilly doing covering college football? And then that really worked. So they moved me into golf as well. They moved me into horse racing, these things where I was completely foreign to the consumer base.
Right.
But I'm like, listen, I won't be out-passioned. I won't be outworked. Just watch. Just watch what happens.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love that. I love seeing that shift when somebody comes around and goes, hey, I was wrong about you, man.
Yeah. And you know, they have to eventually, there's a certain point where you've done a number of things where they can no longer deny what it is that's happening. And I think, you know, it's good to see those things, but also it's good to have that internal fire of knowing, regardless of what anybody might think you're capable of, where you know that there's more left in store for you and where you believe it and go out and do it.
I want to jump back to that tweet a minute or whatever it was, Instagram, something. Do you get a lot of criticism? And if you do, how do you manage that?
Yeah, I get a lot of criticism from people who are either kind of, you know, more traditional country fans or even more traditional hip hop fans who maybe don't appreciate the mixing of the two. But the way that I respond to it is I don't think anyone has ever made history doing something exactly the same way as someone else. All of the people that we have referred to in music and in sports have done something differently. And people would have probably said that a quarterback like Lamar Jackson would never be able to win MVP because he's an unconventional quarterback. He's not like a traditional pocket passer. That's how I see myself. I'm like a mobile quarterback in a way where it's like I can run for 100 yards, but I can also stand back here and pass for 250. I might not have the 400-yard passing game, but I might have 400 total yards at the end of the game. That's how I feel. I'm bringing different skills in, and people just haven't seen someone with that particular amalgamation of skills to be able to recognize what's possible. But that's not to say that it isn't valid or that it won't work.
That is a beautiful analogy. And on top of what you're saying, not only does Lamar Jackson have that skill set, he also went to an organization and a coach that allowed him to accentuate that skill set because they took what he was and built around what he is.
Right.
They did not try to make him something that he is not. And if
Right.
you have a label and you have people like Keith Urban and Dierks Bentley and Chase and all these folks believing in you and letting you run the offense that you were born to run,
Right.
then you have a much better opportunity to become great and win an MVP.
Yeah, it would be really easy from a music industry perspective to be like, okay, we have to make him like more country, we have to make him more whatever. But it's like, well, let me just be myself and understand that I love country music, I love hip hop, I love gospel, I love R&B. I'm gonna try to continue to blend it as best as I know how, because that's what I feel called to do, and that's what I think I'm good at doing as an artist, and it seems to be working. And luckily, I do have a lot of people around me on the industry side, but also a lot of supporters who listen to the music who can respect that I'm doing it a little bit differently, and that definitely feels good to have that support.
Well, we certainly do here at Outsider, brother. I love your spirit. I'm so grateful that you took the time to spend that time with me and with us today and our listeners. They're going to learn a lot about you listening to this. And again, if you ever decide that you're done creating excellence in the music space and you want to be a sports analyst, you just let me know, because you're ready. You're ready,
Hey, man.
You are ready.
I watch a lot of different sports, and to be able to come on here and chat with you about music and sports, which are my two favorite things, I really appreciate you having me on here.
Thank you so much, man. Be well and God bless.
Thank you, man. Likewise.
It's always so fulfilling for me to learn about people's paths to the person that they become. And I really was fulfilled by hearing Breland's spirit and learning about how he got here and where he hopes and believes he's going. Really appreciate your time, brother. Thank you so much, and good luck to you in the rest of your career. If you guys liked what you saw there, please rate, review, and follow us here at Outsider. We have so much coming in this company. I can't wait for you guys to see what we have coming in the future, because it's going to blow your mind. We love it. We appreciate spending time with you guys. Again, rate, review, and follow Outsider. Have an amazing day, everybody.